what is your current assessment of today's global economy and financial markets?
I'd say that the market is going to continue on, even in light of a pandemic and growth rates that are going backwards, right? And as long as the second barrel of the shotgun being the fiscal side of it, and the federal government continuing to pump in money, another half 550 billion yesterday they were talking about new money infrastructure projects. You can't get in front of that. You can't say, hey, this is bad on valuation. So my part is I go along with it. I would guess I'd be bullish in that sense, but I just think the money is coming in and you don't fight it.
So can you do us a favor and just start by giving us an overview of how the U.S. equity markets operate? And specifically, I'm talking about the exchanges. Can you sort of deconstruct for us exactly how it all works?
My job is to trade for institutions. What we do during the day when we're not writing notes or books or things like that, we trade for institutional clients. So, I have mutual funds, hedge funds, pension funds. They all come to us and they say, hey, execute this for me. I need you to do a good job. So I've got to navigate that maze that I just explained to you and try to maximize the liquidity while minimizing their cost and make sure that no one spots me. And it sounds, it's a lot harder than it sounds. So we've been doing this for almost 20 years now as an independent small brokerage firm, which I think proves that what we're doing is some good work in I'm basically fighting HFTs, algorithms, and everything else. So it's a complicated process. What looks simple when you look at that quote on Robinhood or Ameritrade is a lot going on beneath the scenes.
Has that been more or less cleaned up by this point in time? Are we still living in a world where there are these highly sophisticated, highly resourced players that are basically operating as market parasites here, where they are looking at the data and jumping in front of those elephants you mentioned, and adding friction and cost on there that really shouldn't be there in a perfect world, that over the big picture hurts the system, but it enriches them in the process?
Yeah, and they're still there. They haven't gone away. And what's interesting is that they've kind of fought themselves. They beat each other up over the years so much that the smaller ones got pushed out because the cost got too high. And the cost for one, I don't know what it exactly is, but somebody will come up and to shave 1 microsecond off of trading is extremely high. A microsecond, we're talking about slivers of a billionth of a second, ridiculous amount of time frame. Since the flash crash of 2010, when it was first invented or thought about. So here we are in 2021, 11 years later, and they're just finalizing something called the Consolidated Order Trail, which will take all of these exchanges and options exchanges and stock exchanges and kind of consolidate that data so that the SEC can get this better eye in the sky to figure out, are these guys really doing something bad? Are they spoofing one market so they can lay it off in another? Are they bidding on an exchange here so they can sell it in a dark pool here? They can't tell right now. It's very difficult to find out who's doing what. So I think the Consolidated Order Trail will help them. I hope to see that. I hope to see they bring a number of cases against these guys who have been doing some of these bad things. But one of the problems even with the CAT, they call it the CAT, they don't have futures data. So what we were talking about before, whether you need to know what's going on in Chicago and the futures market and in the New York cash market, well, the SEC is only going to have the cash market. So even though it's a much better system, it's still only a piece of the pie. They really need to get the two together. But the CFTC controls the futures market. The SEC regulates the cash and the options in the exchange and the stock market. They don't talk to each other. Right? It's two competing regulators. So you got a problem there. And guess what? The bad guys know that. And they're more than happy to take advantage of it. So
to kind of continue your analogy of the arms race, I mean, it's sort of like the bad actors here are using howitzers and the law enforcement teams are using pea shooters, right? You talked about the CAT. The CAT, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sort of like a master tape, right? So you mentioned we have all these different exchanges now that things run on, and really nobody, at least nobody on the regulatory side, had a master view as to what was happening across them. So they could be watching maybe one exchange and some player's behavior on that exchange, but totally ignorant on what that player was doing over on a different exchange. And now that they've got the CAT running, that helps, but you're saying it's still not complete, right? So right. And like anything, usually, if there's money to be made, if there's big money to be made, the players that operate in that space will probably always be able to out innovate and outspend law enforcement agencies. That's just sort of the way it's always sort of been from time immemorial. I see you nodding here.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a quick side story on the cat before you go on. The cat, the predecessor, right now, FINRA is building the cat. They're finalizing FINRA, our self-regulatory agency that we all are members of, which is great. But the predecessor to FINRA was a firm called Thesis, and they were originally designed to build this cat. Thesis was an offshoot of an HFT firm called TradeWorks. They came out and they bid for the project essentially. And who was in charge of selecting the winning bidder? The SROs, the stock exchanges. So you talk about the fox in the hen house. They select the firm which botched it up. You can't, intentionally or not, I don't know, but they botched this thing up. So it took years of delays and problems. And finally, they said, you're done. You're done. You get rid of you, FINRA, come in and fix this thing. But it was a wrench in the engine. And was it put there intentionally?
Was it intentional?
I don't know. I'm not on the inside of that, but it's certainly suspicious to me.
Payment for order flow model that's been created. So Robinhood, that's a name that a lot of people recognize because it's in the media a lot. That's a new trading platform, and it's zero commission trades. So if you open an account with Robinhood, you can make as many trades as you want, and Robinhood's not going to charge you anything for that. So can you comment on this?
Everything revolves around payments and rebates. This is the way it works. So Robinhood is more than happy to say, hey, zero commission. And we'll pick on Robinhood because, like you said, they're the ones in the news. They're going to route that order not to a stock exchange, not to a dark pool, and which are, by the way, all dark pools are not bad. They're getting, they're ATSs, but we'll get to that later if you want. But they will route it to a market maker. And Citadel happens to be the biggest one out there. There's a few others. And the market maker will say, okay, I'll pay you 10 mils, a tenth of a penny, 15 mils. Robinhood happened to figure out a better way of doing it. They get a percentage of the spread. So the wider spread names, they actually make more money. So there's a conflict of interest right there. But they will get a payment for every order that they send over to the market maker, who will pretty much guarantee a fill. Okay, now the market maker is going to commit their capital and say, I will sell, okay, you're looking to buy 100 shares, I'll sell it to you. I'll even give you price improvement. I'll even say, okay, if the stock is offered, say the stock is $15 bid offered at 15.05, I'll give it to you at 15.049, slight price improvement. So the client says, oh, wonderful, I beat the offer and it cost me zero. What's the problem here? Well, the problem is the market maker doesn't do this. Why would somebody pay to execute and take risk? Okay, essentially the market maker is taking risk at that point because he sold you stock and now he's got to go out there and buy it and flatten his position out. Well, it becomes not necessarily about that one order. It becomes a question of all the orders.